Hello and welcome. You found the Social Work Podcast. My name's Jonathan Singer, and I'll be your host as we explore all things social work. This is Jonathan Singer. I'm the host of the Social Work Podcast. You know, this whole podcast thing is pretty new, and there are only a handful of publicly available podcasts for social workers. Now, traditional media like television and radio have a pretty good idea of who's tuning in and what they want. In fact, entire industries are dedicated to identifying consumer preferences. The world of podcasts, however, is a little more like the Wild West. I know a little bit about who listens to the Social Work Podcast, but not much. I know that since March 2007, 3,200 unique visitors have come to the website over 10,000 times from places like Australia, England, Canada, China, Iran, and Oklahoma. I know that the podcasts have been downloaded over 1,000 times. I also know that 3 times as many people use Internet Explorer as any other browser to view the site. However, I know almost nothing about how you listen to the podcasts, what your preferences are for lengths of podcasts and the kind of topics you want. I don't know why you listen to the podcasts, and I know nothing about whether or not you find the podcast useful or clinically relevant. So, in order to get some information, I've added a new feature to the Social Work Podcast website, a poll. Every month, I'll ask a question in the hopes of finding out a little more about who you are. The results of the first poll are in. The first poll asked visitors to the Social Work Podcast website, what is the ideal length for a social work podcast? Over a 2-week period, Wednesday, September 26th to Tuesday, October 9th, 2007, 43 visitors took the poll, which wasn't too bad since I had no advertising and people just had to stumble across it coming to the website. Visitors had the option to choose from 5 answers to the question, what is the ideal length for a social work podcast? First answer, less than 5 minutes. Second answer, less than 10 minutes. Third answer, less than 20 minutes. Fourth answer, less than 30 minutes. And the fifth answer was as long as it needs to be. I was surprised by the results. Only one respondent thought that the ideal length for a social work podcast was less than 5 minutes. In contrast, a nearly equal number of respondents believed that the social work podcasts should be less than 10, 20, or 30 minutes. That was 8 respondents for the 10 minutes, 7 respondents for the 20 minutes, and 8 respondents for the 30 minutes. The runaway favorite for an ideal length? As long as it needs to be, with 19 votes, or 44% of the respondents. So, what do I make of these results? Well, I like to think that the average listener of the Social Work Podcast is interested in learning something that will improve his or her social work skills. So, the podcast should be as long as it needs to be in order for that to happen. However, more people voted for podcasts to be less than 30 minutes than for as long as it needs to be, which also suggests that I better get my point across in under 30 minutes if I expect people to listen. This is not a scientific poll. There's no way to determine how many people decided not to vote, nor is there a way to determine if a respondent voted multiple times. And, just for the record, I did not vote. Thanks for helping me figure out what you like and what you don't like. While browser preference is somewhat useful, your answers to these questions will ultimately help me make the podcast as useful as it can be. So, please visit the Social Work Podcast to participate in the next poll, which will be available October 12th through October 24th. The topic? What do you use to listen to the Social Work Podcast? So, I'm Jonathan Singer. Thanks for being with me today for this episode of the Social Work Podcast. If you missed an episode, visit our website at socialworkpodcast.com. If you have suggestions for future podcasts, please email me at jonathan@socialworkpodcast.com. And to all the social workers out there, keep up the good work. We'll see you back here next time at the Social Work Podcast.